brand new, fresh out the bag. No scratches on it, pretty much pristine condition. And here's the pipes that it comes with. So this is the Milwaukee M18 workshop blower. I've owned two of these before because I bought one and then I bought one that was in better condition, and then I ended up selling that, selling the worst condition one because it didn't come with an extra long pipe, and it was I decided to keep the better condition one. And I used to use one of these when I was staying in my bus, because I would use it to get all the cat hair off of the couch with that, surprisingly, for some reason. But yeah, normally a vacuum cleaner wouldn't really be very good with pet hair. This was actually pretty good at just blowing it off of the couch. Yeah, this was actually one of my favorite tools. It really came in handy. It was relatively decent on its efficiency with the battery. Yeah, and I always wanted to get another one of these for quite a while, because I ended up selling that when I moved, along with a bunch of other stuff, some of my tools and things like that. But I always said if I ever ended up getting into collecting tools again, I would get another one, because it was just really useful. I've been doing a lot of sanding, cutting wood and everything. Like, sawdust was like everywhere in the shed. Like, there's been a layer of sawdust covering pretty much everything. One of these sorts of things is pretty much essential for a workshop if you've got a lot of sanding and cutting equipment, especially if you're not somebody who connects like a vacuum hose or whatever to your tools, because sawdust and stuff just gets pretty much everywhere. Collection bags and things like that, such as like these and stuff like that, and these bags that connect to like sanders and saws and things like that, even though they do sometimes collect a decent amount of the sawdust and shavings and stuff, it still gets into the air, especially with the grinder and things I've found lately. So I've really needed one of these. So, and this is just a solid plastic. This part's made of rubber though. The first one of these I got only had this part, so I bought the one that had the longer one. Okay, so here is that. Relatively decent weight to it. Doesn't feel too flimsy. The pipe's only held in by a little plastic tab here. So that connects in here like that. And it's got this little icon on here. Twist to lock it. Yeah, so you have to really twist it a bit more, it feels like. I'm not really sure when you go like that. Kind of awkward getting it on there, and then it feels like that would sort of lock it in, but you really have to turn it round. And I don't really like things like that, because it feels like if you put too much strength into it, it might break, because they're only little plastic pieces holding it on there. And then put the second pipe on there and twist that, clicks in. It comes with this piece as well here, which is like a multi-nozzle thing for inflating different things like earbeds or inflatable furniture and things like that. So I guess that's a smaller one, medium size, and then bigger one like this for a earbed, I guess. I never used this piece, so I don't really know what it's like, but I'll have a go at it. Still relatively light. It's a strange looking tool, but really effective and quite cool. Useful for getting a lot of dust out of things where a vacuum cleaner wouldn't be able to reach. Just got this the other day. Just a 5 amp battery. So this thing's got 3 settings for variable speed on it. Comes with basically low, medium, and high. Let's give this thing a go. Just remember, if you're blowing a lot of sawdust and things around, it's always important to have some kind of respirator or facial protection like this on to stop it from getting into your lungs, because it's one of the hazards of these things. Helps to protect the eyes as well. So So this little switch here next to the trigger makes it so that you can have the trigger held down without keeping your finger on it. So you can pull that in. So you can pull the trigger, put that down, and then take your finger off and it stays on. There's the low setting. I'd say with this tool I think the construction's relatively decent. Seems to be made out of a relatively hard plastic. Rubberized handle feels quite nice in the hand. It's got a extra rubber bit on this piece. The other side where the motor is. This part here is just hard plastic. The end nozzle is made out of quite a thick rubber. And I do say there's a beautiful shade of red as well. Quite a well put together solid tool. The only thing that I don't particularly like about this is the fact that this piece is okay. I mean, you've only got a couple of little plastic toggles holding this thing on, and with this connection like that, I feel like maybe something like a screw-in sort of thing might be a little bit better than this sort of toggle that you just put in, insert like that and then twist. Because unfortunately with connections like this where you just put it in and then you twist it, sometimes they can become loose, or if those pieces a little bit breaks off or something like that, then it's no longer really usable. It really comes down to being fast and efficient versus something that's slower and more reliable. I think like a screw-in, maybe not necessarily for this part here, but for this part here might be a little better, because it takes longer to assemble and disassemble, but at the same time probably less likely to break over time. Same with this. It's got this little emblem here, little diagram to lock and unlock, so twist it up this way to unlock, but it does take quite a bit of force to lock it. So, you know, that's why I get a little bit sort of nervous doing things like that, because I think that sometimes it's like, is it already locked, or if I do it a bit too much, I'm a bit worried that I'll overturn it and then it might break, because that's the problem. But yeah, I felt that because it's got like two little bits here, that twisting it just a little bit obviously probably wasn't doing it the full way, so that's why I twisted it the whole way. So yeah, the only thing I really just don't like about this that I found is that it just has this plastic part here like holding the pipe on. I think that would have been a bit better if it was like sort of cut like a screw, so like a screw-in one, or have some kind of metal piece that goes through it or something like that. Now it has these ugly imperfections on here that almost look like chipped plastic at the ends of these things, and it made me a little bit concerned about them being possibly brittle. But from the other models of these that I've owned, like the other ones that I've had, they've pretty much all had this imperfection on here. So I'd say for everything else, like the tool is well made, the machining on it relatively decent. I mean, I'd say more than decent, to be honest. In all honesty, it's a really well made, clean cut, nice sort of looking tool. But just this part that I don't really like, just these plastic parts, I think they could have possibly done something better here. You know, if this gets knocked around a bit, And I just think, yeah, with these little plastic toggles in here, could have been better if they'd done it as a screw top. So putting it in, you have to line it up like that, shove it in, really twist the bastard, twist it to get it on. But once that's on, it's seems to be on well. So 3 speeds. I'll try the first one just for this around here. So this shed is completely covered with a lot of sawdust, nowhere near as bad as it used to be. Used to be able to run your finger along things and there'd just be a huge amount, just like, but still enough to make a difference. So I'll try it on the first setting first. Get up this tank here. This is going to knock a whole pile of things down, but I'm not really too worried at the moment. I like the fact that this comes with this extra long pipe, because from what I've seen, I don't know if the other companies like DeWalt and the Makita have an extra long pipe. I mean, I've only seen pictures of them with the shorter one, but then again, in all the catalogues, this one's only equipped with this piece as well. But regardless of whether the other ones come with it or not, I think having an extra long pipe is really good. No jokes intended, because it helps you to reach things along the floor and into more awkward areas. But at the same time, if you're using this just say to clean off your saw, workbench and things like this, the length is going to be a bit too long. You're going to have to awkwardly put your arm up like that. So ideally, I'd say for most workshop situations, just taking this thing off, unlocking it. Still quite surprised. I don't remember that it was that hard to get it off before. And one other thing, these little grooves inside there will leave a bit of a mark around this tube, as you can sort of see. But I think the plastic's hard enough that it's not going to scrape it too badly if you repetitively do that a few hundred times. So take the pipe apart, show what part of it that you put into there, and then you twist that, and that feels a lot easier. That doesn't feel like you have to put really a whole lot of strength in to attach this little pipe, perhaps because it's made out of rubber instead of hard plastic. So for taking this one on and off, it relatively feels like a lot more of a softer twist, and this is much more compact, much easier to get into areas on a workbench and things like that with this size. In fact, I think I'll probably keep it like this, to be honest, although getting the areas on the floor with my back and neck the way it is, I'm probably going to have to put the bigger one on, but for the most part I'll probably use it like this. So anyway, back to it. This is also really good for getting all the dust out of some of your tools and make them look a bit shinier and new. vacuum setting. Medium now. Saw blade down, and now this is the highest setting. There's some things you're going to need to go over with a cloth. It's not going to get the sawdust when it's thickly coated over things like that. To get that top layer off, it's pretty decent. I'd say overall this is probably one of my favourite tools to use. Battery's highly efficient, lasts quite a lot of time on one of these 5 amp batteries. Decent weight to it, relatively hardy. Has quite a few uses, you know, but I'd say these are pretty much essential to have in a shed or a workshop where you're working with sanding and cutting equipment to help get everything out the way. Obviously blowing it around is not going to be a substitute for sucking it up with a vacuum cleaner. But you can't really run a vacuum cleaner all throughout your tool bag, shelves, things like all of this over here. I do have a vacuum cleaner that has, for a reference, a Karcher vacuum cleaner that has a blowing function on it. It's really quite useful, but one of these, there's no real substitute. Just getting dust and things off your equipment that you use all the time, making it look a bit better. And if you're doing a woodworking project or something like that, between coats and things like that, or whatever you're doing, rather than just going over something with a cloth, it can be quite useful to have one of these to just get all the dust off. So for outside, this has uses as well. I wouldn't say that this has the same power as a leaf blower for somebody who wants to use this in the garden for blowing away leaves and cut grass and things like that, but it still has its uses. So if you're doing a bit of cutting on the ground, this can be quite useful at getting sawdust off of the lawn as well. If you're doing a bit of woodwork outside and it gets all in amongst the grass like this, ends up looking quite bad all over the lawn like that, but this is where this can be quite useful. I was just doing a bit of this earlier. So yeah, in situations like this where you get a lot of sawdust all over the lawn or something like this, and you don't want to look like a weirdo and take a lawnmower out onto the lawn to try and suck it up, because it's, you know, you do it quite regularly for a few times, you're going to end up making the lawn look terrible. So I find this is actually quite sufficient for getting rid of all that. Looks a lot cleaner now than it did before. And although this doesn't quite have the power of a regular outdoor leaf blower, it'll do a decent job getting away some leaves and doing some small outdoor jobs. I'd say overall one of these is good for just having inside a garage or somewhere that gets dusty quite often. And even, you know, perhaps if you have a couch that has a lot of pet hair on it, it may not remove everything, but it can do quite a good job removing excess pet hair off something without going over it with a vacuum cleaner, which isn't very effective, I find. As for leaves, does a semi-alright job. I mean, if it's going to be on concrete and you're getting leaves away from that, then I'd say that would be a lot better. And if you get rocks that have gone out of where they're supposed to be, putting them back in the garden helps with that as well. This still remains probably one of my favorite tools to use. Simple, easy to use, quite handy, decent weight to it. And in terms of battery, well, I don't know. It's relatively effective most of the time, but it's used half of this 5 amp battery, though I did use probably about a few minutes on the super sawzall yesterday, so it's quite a high power demand tool, although it was still at 4 bars. But I used to find when I would use it in the bus, this thing would be pretty good. But I'll use it for a while and see how it goes, and then I'll get back to this. So I did this time-lapse video for reference for how long the battery would last, and it lasted just over an hour on the lowest setting. Sorry I didn't get to do the higher ones. So what I was doing in this part of the video was I had the blower set up on the table, pointing towards the work that I was doing, which was sanding with an angle grinder, which puts sawdust everywhere. So this allowed me to blow the sawdust away from me while it was sort of clouding around normally. It was quite useful for that. This thing is also quite useful at getting sand and dust off your clothes after you've been working. So I did have another couple of clips of blowing leaves away from around the garden and outside of the property. Overall, I would rate this tool a 9 out of 10. The only reason I don't rate it as a full 10 is because the price. These things aren't cheap. You can go for up to a couple of $100 New Zealand, sometimes as low as 80 to 120 if you can get them from Trade Me or Marketplace. But what you do pay for with the larger amount for something like this, it does make up for with quality. Milwaukee's generally not a cheap brand, but they are for the most part fairly decent quality from what I've seen and reviews. So overall, I can't really fault this tool, can't really say there's anything bad about it. I mean, it could be potentially lacking in power compared to the other outdoor blowers, but this is really marketed and sold as a workshop blower. So if you're using this just around the house and in the shed, and just some small jobs, then it should be fine. So it's not really going to have the power to move big piles of leaves the way a regular outdoor blower does, but it should still do an adequate job regardless. So yeah, can't really fault it. Pretty decent quality tool. Thanks for watching.